Your idea for a game is no longer just an idea. Your hard work is paid off. You're now a dungeon master. You're ready to go.
With a ream of adventure notes in hand, you prep yourself for your first session. You're ready to go.
Now it's time to show off your stuff. It's too late to back out now. You've got a game, and you need to run it.
So, welcome to the club, fellow dungeon master. Let us pull the big chair out for you. Take a seat. Feels good, doesn't it? It's your campaign, part 3, running the game, this week on the Dungeon Masters Dojo.
Support the Dungeon Masters Dojo by heading over to Apple Podcasts and Podchaser and leave a review. Take the time to leave a comment as well. This helps make us more searchable to those listeners interested in content such as ours. But more importantly, we want to know how we are doing and what topics you would like to hear about.
Another way you can support the DMD is with a small monthly donation, so we can continue to deliver quality content to you, our listeners. This also helps us to upgrade and replace equipment. Head over to Anchor, to the Dungeon Masters Dojo page, and click the support button. And now, onto this week's episode.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Dungeon Masters Dojo podcast. This is a show for game masters, as well as experienced and new players alike. We hope to bring you the tools needed to not only be a great GM, but to help you develop as a player. I'm your host, Louis Aponte. Our stars of the show are Scott Labby and Bill Robotile. Let's enter the dojo and see what both Bill and Scott have in store for us today. Hey Bill, hey Scott, how's it going?
Much
Good.
better now that I've seen your smiling face.
Yeah, we're talking about running the game.
Running the game, part 3.
Part 3.
Given
Quite
a lot of...
the series, huh? This
It
is
is.
like one of those mini-series, like The North and the South or Band of Brothers, only without the explosions and all the cool stuff.
I can give you explosions.
I could too, if you want.
It comes with being a man of a certain age, folks. Sometimes you don't even know the explosion's happening.
Okay, so running the game, we know it can be really intimidating. How do we fix that?
Yeah, practice.
Yeah,
Yeah,
pretty much.
It can be intimidating, and it can even be intimidating to a veteran DM. I feel extremely confident every year with the story that we've prepared until like day one of our getaway, and then I'm like, man, I hope this doesn't suck because I put a lot of work into this 120 some odd encounters in this storyline. So if I F it up, it's going to really blow. So it could be like a really intimidating thing, especially to a brand spanking new GM.
Yeah, very much so. I mean, we went over with part 1 and part 2 how to prep up. This is kind of like the wrap-up. I mean, you're actually in the chair at this point.
Yeah, there's no turning back.
So what do we need to do to get them started or to continue? You've had your session 0. You may have even had your first game. Just kind of dip your toes in the water a little bit. So where do you start off?
Yeah, and I think the biggest thing is too, you don't want to do that runaway bride thing. You don't want to hit the altar and then be like, oh shit,
Yeah.
and then turn around and run, because that's embarrassing. So where do you start? You ask. Well, if you've already, like you mentioned, if you've already had like your first session, you did your session 0, you did a little playing, and then you had your first full blown session. I think you should always start with a recap.
Agreed.
Right. So if you don't start getting in the habit of doing it, it really helps a lot. I don't know how many times I've sat at a table as a player and been like, what are we supposed to be doing again? And as a GM, I've heard that a bunch of times. So when you do your recap, it's always good to kind of add those story elements in where you kind of refresh their memory on what you're supposed to do, how you came to be where you are in the game right now.
Yeah, your session 0 is more make your characters. Here are the rules for the table, rules for gaming, rules for the house, things like that. Like you may have gotten a little play in, maybe a full game session. with this recap, now it's all about the plot. It's all about the story.
Yeah.
Go over who's hurt and who's not. Who started off hurt.
Yep. Who's dead?
Who's dead? Who needs rest? Then, if you've already had your, like I said, you hit the high points. Key plot points that you've already put out there. NPCs that they have to seek out, remind them, or you need to see Mr. Phillips. Oh, that's what his name was, because some people keep notes and most don't. And then go from there. Places, where are you supposed to be going?
Yeah.
The name of the city, town, or the road you're supposed to be on, and the mountain range you're supposed to cross. Reiterate these high points for everybody. And that way it will refresh them of their session 0 and hopefully the first session. If this is your first session, then lay it out there. These are the places you need to go. I may have mentioned it in session 0. You may not have. Now is the time.
So I think what you're saying is keep bullet points and keep it quick so you're not spending an hour.
Yeah. You don't want to go. You don't want to go into a
5
narration
minutes max.
Yeah,
really,
right. You don't want to go into a narration. You just want to hit the high points.
Yeah, and the cool stuff too. Don't forget to leave out the cool stuff. Like one of the things that I definitely would have thrown into a recap, if I needed to, was that game session where you rode the shield down the steps of a ziggurat.
Okay, yeah.
Into the army of zombies. Yeah.
Because that's cool stuff. Or the underwear-clad brawl in the middle of the tavern at night. That Lou does a lot of cool stuff. I will give him that.
Well, wild cards.
It's caution to the wind.
When a wild card has embraced his position at the table, you know you're going to get something out of
Yeah,
it.
most people will be like, "I hurry up and put my armor on." Not Lou. He's out in his tighty whities and throwing hands with the people that broke into the inn to assassinate him. So, but the cool stuff, never ever leave out the cool stuff, because that starts to charge up the players a little bit.
It does.
Yeah.
And it's weird, but one of the kind of neat things that a recap does is it kind of shows the story through a different lens. Kind of, everybody at the table sees things, sees these situations and these, the combats and the encounters and any of the role play stuff through a very different lens.
I was just about to say, when I get the recap from somebody, to me it's like repainting the picture, and I see things that I may have missed before.
Yeah, and you know what? Even if you play with terrain and miniatures and stuff, still that lens from player to player is very, very different.
Well, this gives you a chance to get everyone onto the page that you're trying to paint.
Yeah.
So that way it's like, okay, everyone's going to be skewed a little bit, whether they want to or not. No one has the same exact vision you've put out there. This is your chance to, like Lou said, repaint the picture. So everyone's like, oh, okay, I get it now. And it kind of zeroes things in for you.
Cliffhanger endings. I try to end.
Love them.
Love them. They are great. And I used to watch. I don't know if you remember Matinee at the Bijou? It was like on Sunday mornings after Little Rascals.
Oh, yeah.
But they always had like, what was it, like Forbidden City, the old Flash Gordon or Buck Rogers serials on there. And cliffhanger endings were like rampant in those old serials.
Where my resource was? Listening to the radio and listening to The Shadow.
That
was a good one, too.
We would go camping, and I had a shortwave radio, and a Canadian station reran the entire series in chronological order. They did the same thing in the 20s and 30s radio shows, Little Orphan Annie, the whole thing, but we would listen to The Shadow. And we were glued to it, and the adults are sitting there. Now, this is when I was a kid in Scouts, like 1905 when Baden-Powell first started them. The adults were sitting there because they remember it, listening to it sometimes, or even if it was a rehash, or listening to their parents talk about it, but their parents were listening to it, and they're like, "Oh, this is cool!" So it became a thing, and every episode, the Lone Ranger, every episode was on a cliffhanger,
and those are if you can get a hold of those, and YouTube has them. A lot of them.
Yep.
Watch them. I mean, watch them with an open mind because the acting, the special effects,
Well, what I'm talking about were radio shows.
and the radio
Yeah,
shows.
there were-
you
there
can
was no
actually
watching
listen
them.
to.
Yeah,
there's websites where
Yep.
you can listen to those, and
Yep.
they're fantastic. They're great tools for a DM.
Yes.
And it sounds corny. It's not just a bunch of old farts sitting around with a bunch of microphones saying, "Listen to these old shows," because we liked them. But they're really
They're well
good
written
storytelling
and
tools.
we use sound effects now. Background music and sound
Yep.
effects. That was their bread and butter.
Yeah.
That's what said it. And this will give you an idea of how well how deep you can get into sound effects. And now it's just a matter of setting up a soundboard, number them, put the number on your sheet, sound 1 here, sound 2 here, sound 3 here. You can set up ahead of time, and you're ready to go. And you can have a really, really fulfilling gaming session, and all from listening to Buck Rogers and the Lone Ranger and the Shadow all on the radio. So cliffhangers,
Yeah.
gotta go with them.
and it'll show you how to set up a cliffhanger. I like to leave almost every session on a cliffhanger.
Yes, a
because-
dramatic point.
Yeah, right before the combat's about to start,
Yep, or
Um,
end.
or end.
Yeah, there's just
Yeah.
that one. All right, do you actually dispatch the big guy? Or this particular? Do you defeat the monster? There's been a number of times where we've cut play game sessions half an hour, 20 minutes early because it was a really good point to stop.
Yep.
All right, we're going to stop right here. What? We got another half an
No,
hour?
yeah, so
Nope.
Some of
Nope.
us don't like that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we're going to stop right here. We'll pick up next week.
And that's why we do it. It builds
Yes.
anticipation. It's like, oh my God, because now, and especially when we go away for our week-long thing, leaving that long session, that long 8-hour day on a cliffhanger, it's got people talking about it all night. Oh my God, this is where we ended up. This is what we're doing. I wonder how it's gonna go. And people are like thinking about, okay, what sort of tactics can I bring
Right.
to this? How am I going to bail myself out of this? And
this-
that anticipation's great. It's good energy.
It is. So with that said, with tactics and anticipation, running your combats, lighthearted. I know we've done some that were lighthearted, and some that were very dramatic.
Yeah.
There's a couple different ways, and actually you want to mix it up a little bit. Sometimes combat might be just a silly slap fight in the street.
We've had those too.
Yep.
And other times
Between characters, I've witnessed that.
Yep.
Yeah, Korik and Lou had themselves probably the least epic fist fight ever. Their characters did, not the two of them. But it was wildly entertaining. It was great
It
stuff.
was.
Yeah, you got to mix it up. I mean, it's not every battle is draw a weapon and cleave them a twain. Sometimes it's just a matter of a verbal combat. It could be a puzzle solve.
Yeah.
There's just a lot of different ways to go about it.
Two bards
Dueling it out.
dueling it out, like a rock and roll duel, or
Dueling loots.
Yeah. Or, and again, back to the old movies. If I have a player whose character is a dexterity-based swordsman, and I have an antagonist who is the same, then I'm going Errol Flynn on that fight scene. Where they're tightrope walking or something ridiculous whilst fencing, or leaping from one thing to another whilst fencing, or cutting the rope to a chandelier so they can make it up to the second level of the mansion quickly, that sort of thing.
Where the Quillians get locked up to go face to face. He looks at me and goes, "I have something to tell you. I am not left-handed."
Or if someone looks like, if there's an NPC that's going to go, or another character, then I will often have it a very serious combat, especially if there's a big potential for mortality.
Yes.
I will certainly go dramatic in that.
Well, let's talk time management on this particular topic. Initiative counter or a keeper besides the game master. Because that'll help things move along a lot quicker. You want to keep things flowing in your combat. You don't want it to stall out. All right, who's next? And a game master has an awful lot to keep track of.
Yeah,
already.
there's a lot of management
assign the
to it.
job to somebody. piece of paper, graphic, write down the names, who's going to go off. Let them call it off for you. In that little interim, you as the storyteller, you as the game master can get your thoughts together. Even if it's just a matter of 4 or 5 seconds while they're looking to see who is getting it. You're not doing that. Let someone else do it. That way you can gather your thoughts together. So that's another little way to keep your combat running.
And combat can surprisingly slow a game down to a screeching halt because combat in D&D
Takes forever.
hours sometimes.
Yeah, 6 seconds usually takes about 15 minutes.
Yeah, and
It seems.
and yeah, so I'll shave time off of combat wherever I can to keep it moving.
Yes.
I'll do hits instead of hit points on enemies. I'll pre-roll.
Yep.
I'll do any number of things. But when you're doing combat, and because combat takes so long, it's easy to you roll your dice. It's a 20. That's a hit. You take 6 points of damage. And now be descriptive. It's hard to be descriptive after a really long day of running a game, but it's not so bad if it's a 3 or 4 hour session.
Right.
It can be very easy.
And that was actually my next point I had. Describe, and you got to base it on your audience too.
You could tell the two of us run games for the same people and spend a lot of time with each other. There's a lot of overlap.
Yep. But base your description on your audience. I mean, our group, we can go full blown R with no problem whatsoever. But if you have younger people, especially your younger players and your younger game masters, there's got to be limitations, and these should be set in your session 0. But use a little common sense, please. Even though it isn't as common as you'd think, you're not going to describe the evisceration of your combatant to a 12-year-old player.
Right.
He sees enough of this on the video games to start with, but it's a whole different thing when he's in it. It's on the screen. You turn off the game, it's done. It's forgotten. But you're sitting there describing it, and he's the one that did it, and he's describing how I'm going to hit this guy, and I'm going center mass, and you describe viscera pouring out of his stomach as he drops to his knees, and he catches his intestines as he looks up in your eyes and goes, "Why?"
Tries to shovel it back in.
Yeah. I mean, you need to base your description. Now, you can obviously get really involved in your descriptions, but you need to be correct to the audience that you're participating.
Yeah, I always like to go in keeping with the old like movie or TV show theme. The clutch the place where they were wounded and fall over,
and he falls over, and and one foot twitches a couple times, and you can be descriptive, but you don't have to be gory.
You got to know when to fade to black.
Yeah. That's key in so many different parts of this.
But just keep it when it comes to running your combat, especially because that's when you're going to run into gore.
Yeah.
Most oftenly, sometimes caused by you.
Yep. That's where that session 0 is like really important.
Yep. So
as well.
Be descriptive based on your audience, and then have cheat sheets ready for your PCs and your monsters to once again expedite play.
Yeah, and I know you're not and I'm going to use a term that we recently learned from our friends over at Bite Size Gaming, but I know you're not a screener, those of us that use the DM screen, but that's a good place to have all those notes handy. I like to ask when a player character is finishing off an enemy, I like to ask them how they're going to do that.
Yeah.
To give them that kind of moment in the spotlight.
We enjoy that too.
Yeah, some people, they really get into it where they're like, ooh, yeah, I'm gonna and there a lot of times there's no fading to black.
Yeah,
there's that trying to pack the intestines back into the body.
Spotlights on them and with the black.
And the thespian.
Oh,
yes, the thespian loves these moments.
Yes,
they will.
It took 15 minutes for the combat. It will take a half an hour for them to describe just how they dispatched the last 2 seconds.
The other thing too is enemy. There's no morale rule in 5th edition.
No, there's not.
And there used to be this thing called the morale rule in previous editions of D&D, and every monster enemy had a morale rating, and you would roll against that, and that was just so that not everything fought to the death, because not everybody's going to fight to the death.
No, a lot of things are like, ow, ow, ow. I don't want to say
yeah,
ow anymore. I'm running away.
I'm losing, and my two buddies just got cut down. I'm hitting the road, you know. So having your enemies fight to the death all the time, when they may have an opportunity to make a break for it. Now with our group, when they run, they get shot in the back.
Yes.
That's not true.
And if they don't fall down, they will chase them down and shoot them to make sure they hit them in the back.
And when they surrender and beg for mercy, that's the worst thing they can do. Because
remember the orc camp? They got mercy.
Because they're going to get anything but that.
Yes.
But not all your enemies are going to fight to the death.
And not all your players are going to chase down every single monster until they are dead.
Unless you have ours.
Yes.
Which is not every one of our players. No. But it can be the a point of contention that can be
enough of them where nothing ever lives.
And I'm not going to mention any names, but one of them happens to be in this room. And it's not me or Bill.
Here, let me guess. Not me or Bill.
Yeah, absolutely correct.
Have no comment.
All right, we're going to move on to the next one. Balancing encounters on the fly.
A key skill.
This is a skill that you need to develop. There is a rare few that will be able to do this from the get-go. You need to practice it. It's tricky, but there's a few ways to get around this. One of my favorites, lots of little foes that harry the party. Gives them a lot of things it slows them down if necessary. It gives you a chance to stage your big guy or let one of your big guys escape. So it helps with your plot and driving your plot as well. And they can just simply harry the PCs. So I like the little foes, but lots of them.
Yeah, and that goes a long way towards pacing, too.
Yes.
Modifying the pace of the game session or the overall campaign. I'll modify armor class.
Yeah.
And hit points. I'll scale it up or down. Mm-hmm. Depending if, and I no longer do this, and I think it's just because of experience, but I no longer will build an encounter that will be like way too strong for my group. I have had occasions where the dice rolls just weren't great, and because of that, my balanced encounter is running rampant over the PCs. And I've had the opposite effect too. I've had my big bad taken out in less than a round so quickly, as a matter of fact, that the other players were like, "Come on, I didn't get a shot at him."
That was a funny night.
That was, and sometimes with those, just let it happen, because that can be pretty fun.
Yep.
But yeah, and knowing where to scale these things, and I see on a lot of the Facebook pages that we frequent. Yep. There's a lot of questions about that, and it's a tough question to answer. How do you balance your encounters so that this doesn't happen or this does happen? There's no science to it. It's kind of,
it's a feel.
Yeah, it's more of an art form, you know?
I think it's about the GM being flexible, because you have some GMs who are strictly rules as written and will not adjust anything on the fly.
Yeah. Yep.
And those are I want to say your really hard games. Your GMs that are flexible and just want the story to continue will understand that and make those changes as they see fit.
Yeah, and that's the key to really good GMing, and Gary Gygax said it best. And if it's good enough for him, then it's good enough for me. It's the spirit of the game and not the letter of the rules that is most important. And I probably botched it somewhere, but
no, that was pretty. I think that was pretty on the mark.
Yeah, and that's what it's all about, But there's no wrong way to play D&D. If you're gonna run the games like that, then go right ahead, And if you like games that are played that way, then that's great too. As long as you're having a good time, that's really.
If you're having a good time, your players keep coming back and keeping and say they're enjoying it too, then great. That's your style. Go with it.
Yeah. Yep.
But if there are other styles and there are other ways to go about it, we've touched on pacing a little bit, character interaction, and building opportunities for the encounters. There's a lot of different ways to pace your game. Right? NPCs is a great way. Throw in NPCs, they'll talk them to death.
Yep.
But that
One
also
of my favorites, actually.
Right, but that gives you opportunities for passing on plot points, slowing the party down, speeding the party up, passing on information that'll help them or hinder them, depending on which way you want it to go and how you want your story to go. So the pacing's easiest with NPCs, but there's other ways. You can throw in combat to slow things down. Not necessarily an NPC. You can throw in terrain.
Yeah, deep snow, rough terrain,
steep hillsides,
jungle, stuff like that.
Okay, you're going to be hacking through, and in there they're dealing with insects and snakes and swamp and critters in the swamp, and so there's a lot of different ways that you can use to pace. Or you can turn on and say, okay, it's horrible. Or where's my ranger? Where's my trackers? Make a roll. Oh, great roll. Okay, you think you see a game path. And his game path goes from hummock to hummock to hummock, and you can make your way through the swampy area a little bit easier than you thought. Throw a couple dex rolls in there to see who gets their feet wet. Draw something attention out of the swamp. It gets closer. They either wait for it and it just kind of leers back at them, or it just goes away. Enough to build the drama a little bit and to let them know there are things in here. But you can get them to the swamp pretty easily that way if you need to speed things up. They don't have to battle everything that's in the swamp.
Nope, and I could say that I remember I was running a game, and was at the week long, and I can't remember if it was either one of you two. It was one of you two. The guys were riding across the plains on horses, and they had pasted themselves.
Yeah,
And somebody says, and I was like, how do I slow them down? And
that was me.
Yep, you said, there's potholes. The horses can't see all the little nooks and crannies in the ground.
Gopher holes.
Gopher holes, yep. And, it slowed them down.
Yeah.
But yeah, if I didn't think like that, this was my first real time running, or my second time running a long week, I would have never thought of that. But, you being experienced said, yeah, gopher holes. And I was like, oh, yeah, I would have never thought. If you're moving that
fast, you have a difficult time gauging your terrain.
Yeah.
And, okay, you went through a sandy area. There's a bunch of gopher holes. And after a couple of horses broke their legs, and now they're down 2 horses, they slowed right down, didn't they?
Oh, they did. And that's exactly what happened.
Yep.
Because the horses what failed their saves.
Yep.
I love using NPCs, and it could be as simple as, you arrive in a town, and they're like, well, there's a weapons tax, so everybody pays this amount of money, and then there's always that one player that's like, throw a gold over there. Oh, you got a gold? All right, so there's for you, it's 3 gold. What do you mean 3 gold? 3 gold. Well, maybe I got it wrong. There's 3 gold. So, they're going to haggle for a while. They're going to still end up throwing the money in. And then maybe issue a fine for dressing above your station. Well, you're a lowly adventurer. Basically, you're a homeless person that just walks around all over the place.
Armed.
Yeah, you're just kind of like you're a drifter.
So you're homeless. You're a mercenary. Oh, we don't cotton to mercenaries.
Yep. And you're dressing above your station because drifters shouldn't have robes like that. But you're the guy that's tossing gold pieces around like you just minted a bunch in your basement,
or you stole them.
Or you stole them. Yeah. So we'll get as many of those out of you as possible, and then so it's constant haggling while they're in the town or whatever have you, and that'll usually slow them down, or they get involved in the rumor mill where they're asking questions about something.
Or even the shops.
Even the shops, yeah.
There's always a lot of haggling in the shops.
Yep. Well, especially when adventurers come in because they don't know what the real prices are.
Yep.
Yeah, they all have the player's handbook. I remember them players going to a town and they had it was the second edition or first edition player's handbook. There was like 4 of them cracked open at the table. And everybody there was like, all right, well, if we're going to buy a pony, it's this much. That's what the player's handbook says. And everybody but Tom. Tom didn't give a shit. Tom's the guy that throws gold around like he's making it in his basement. Like, I don't give a fuck. And then they naturally they get upset because, oh, wait a minute, a pony's like 30 gold pieces. That's what it says right here on page 20 whatever of the player's handbook. I'm like, well, not in this town. It's like a gauge. Not every pony is going to be the same amount. Not every torch
you
is
stay
going
in
to be the same.
character and what you talking about? I ain't player's handbook. I ain't got a handbook. I can't even freaking read.
Yeah, and then they're like, okay, this is GM being a jerk again. All right, I'll give you your 50 gold pieces for your sway back pony.
Would you like a saddle for that? Bit and bridle, another 5.
So that'll slow the pacing right down, or you can speed the pacing up. Sometimes it needs to. Well, yeah, it needs to be ramped up a little bit, and
either way, you just about every circumstance you run into, you have a way to speed it up. You have a way to slow it down.
Yeah, I like a good foot chase.
Just recognize the opportunities.
Yep, a good foot chase will really speed up like an otherwise dull combat. Where like the big bad maybe makes a break for it, and now it's like, okay, now we got a foot chase going on.
Especially with our group who's going to hunt down everything that so much has flipped them off.
Yeah.
We must kill them.
Yeah, we're gonna kill it.
Yes.
We could have got some information out of it. It's dead now. Let's cut its head off. Bring it to a church and see if they can do a speak with dead. All we need is the head.
All we need.
So
that's my fault. I started that.
Yeah, our group carries heads around like they just went to Stop and Shop or
trophies
or something.
and necklaces.
Yeah. It's like, oh, I got a head here in my bag of holding.
All right, let's go on to oration, storytelling, and ad-libbing. This is the fun part. Now, it takes practice.
This is the hard part.
And a lot of it.
Yeah.
But if you got a knack for it, build upon it. Some people are natural actors, natural bullshit artists. Use it.
Yeah.
Use it.
Most good DMs are.
Yep. And if you're not, read some genre books, watch some movies. You'll get some pointers there as well. But oration is fun. Voices, dialects, use them. Just make notes on what dialect and what voice you're using for individual people, so they don't all sound alike, and B, when they come back to visit that one person they really like, they know it's the same person by the same voice.
Yeah, you're an entertainer. I mean, plain and simple, you're doing your one-man show, showing off all the different personalities you can muster. Anywhere else that would be unhealthy, but at the gaming table, it's perfectly fine. But it can be daunting. It can be like really.
It can be. It can be. That's where practice comes in. You don't have to go over the top with everybody. Your key characters, maybe. Everyone else can sound a little homogenized.
Yeah,
that shouldn't be a problem. Some people aren't good at voices. Some people aren't good at dialects.
That's where like the descriptors come in.
That's where the descriptors come in.
I think the big thing is knowing the boundary between, well, you're a storyteller, you're not a novelist.
There you go.
So you're telling a story, and it's a cooperative story, so you can't really have expectations that your characters are going to do certain things certain ways.
All you can do, even when all you can do is give them guidelines.
Yeah,
and hope they follow it.
If you've been playing with the same people for enough time, though, you get a pretty good idea of how
they're going to react.
They're going to react to certain situations, so you can set them up for that. But if you happen to be a new GM with a group you're somewhat unfamiliar with, as far as their play style goes, you really can't do that. And convention play is, it's just
that's
out of the question.
That's a whole different question.
Yeah.
Then it goes to ad-libbing. This is where a lot of skill comes in, because they're going to ask questions that you did not write the answers for. They're going to be asking about information that you do not have. You took your NPC, you kind of bullet pointed them, how many hits it takes to take them down, what he's got for a weapon, what he can deal with, a couple basic stuff just in case. And then they start, they start asking, gee, are you married? What's the name of your kids? How long have you worked here? Is your father work here too? It's like they'll just come up with
they're making friends. Yeah.
They'll come up with all kinds of questions that you just don't have the answers for. You got to make it up. And if you do, once again, write it down. Because they won't, but they will ask again. And if you're wrong, they'll call you on it.
Yeah. Yeah, they absolutely. Well, I thought last time he had a Scottish accent. It's like, yeah, you're right.
Yes.
Visual aids, I think, go a long way towards this maintaining a particular pace in the game, because you don't have to be very descriptive in words. So you can look at the table, see where the terrain is set up. You have the miniatures. And all you have to do then is really describe a few things, like the time of day. If you have a soundtrack that you're using, you don't even have to describe what they hear, smells, and that's it.
Weather,
because exposition will slow the pacing down to a halt. You ever sit at a table and someone's got a store-bought module, or adventure, I think is what they call them now, and they're reading the text box.
Yeah,
and then you inevitably encounter words you've never heard before, so you're kind of butchering them, and it just grinds everything to a halt. So if you're using these store-bought adventures, paraphrase. Know what the text boxes say,
right?
But
tell most of those text boxes, I have found, are conveniently the same size as a Post-it note.
Yeah.
Rewrite it. Throw the Post-it note over the text box. If you're going to use it, but rewrite it. That helps.
And ad-lib. I mean, it just goes back to what you were saying. That ad-libbing is worth its weight in gold, when dealing with players and keeping pacing on track and everything like that.
Right. Before we move on to the next one, let's take a break. I'm getting a little parched. I could use another adult beverage.
And we'll get you one.
Okay, and we're back. I have my drink. I'm refreshed. There you go. And the crowd goes
live in front of a studio audience.
Thank you for participating. We'll send you a copy of our home game.
We've finally arrived.
All right, let's move on to the next one. One of our favorites, plot hooks.
Yeah, let's go fishing for some PCs.
Heck yeah. There's a couple different ways to go about this. One of our favorites, Easter eggs.
Yes.
From previous game sessions and scenarios. Let them bleed them over. It's a good way to incorporate one scenario when you've ended one. Like we've done this before. We ended up a 7-year, and we laid Easter eggs in the next scenario, instead of next few years of scenarios that harken back to the original ones. The time frame in gameplay was about 250 odd years have passed. Some of the PCs were passed on, some were not, some were about to. But there was a lot of Easter eggs that we scattered about just to kind of give it a little continuity.
I've always wondered how many of the Easter eggs did people recognize. I recognized quite a few of them.
Not all of them. We actually had, some of them were just mind-numbingly blatant.
Right.
But yeah, I'd say probably maybe about 2/3 they caught, but not all of them.
Those were good. So Easter eggs are a way to go.
That's one of our favorites.
Why use plot hooks? I mean, what is the purpose of them in a campaign? I think is probably the biggest question people may have. Why do I need them? Why can't I just have a nice linear campaign that sits nicely on the tracks?
Because I may not want to go that way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Says Lou appropriately.
Yeah. They keep the world from looking linear. There's no invisible walls. I used remember Guild Wars. You must have played Guild Wars.
I played it a little bit.
Remember the first Guild Wars game?
Yep.
Not a sandbox game. You ran up against invisible walls.
Yep.
And the plot hooks, I think, keep the world from looking too linear. You know what I mean?
No one likes that to start with.
Yeah.
They feel directed. They want to have a little bit of free will.
Agency. Yeah.
Well, like I just said,
Yeah.
there's no reason for me to go that way. I'm going to go this way.
Yep. And it helps bait them into your plot line as well.
Yeah.
You want to keep them on track. The plot is the tracks. So, in a lot of different ways, reoccurring themes to draw them back in, remind them where they're supposed to be going, is one way. NPCs always are helpful in every aspect, and then just simply and dropping hints for coming plot lines to keep the interest generated for what's coming.
Yeah, kind of sprinkle them out all over the place in your campaign world, like you're feeding fish in a fish tank, or you're planting grass.
Yeah,
You
don't just dump the bag out. You
right?
spread
Yeah,
it around.
scatter them out, like you're feeding the chickens. Get them out there so that they frequently encounter them, and from town to town, or when they encounter someone on the road. Pepper your world with them a little bit so they're constantly reminded.
Yeah, well, it keeps the theme alive.
Yeah.
So they're reminded where they're supposed to be going. It helps drive your plot. And for the game masters, too, it helps remind you where you're supposed to be going as well. Because game masters can get
you can
derailed,
get derailed too
very, very easily and get caught up with the antics at the table. We're all people. And as you start looking at, we're supposed to be doing this.
Yeah, and to be really, really effective, I like to make it about the people and not the things.
Yes.
It's like defend the town. Well, it's just, a town's a bunch of buildings. Like, defend the people.
Mm-hmm.
Or you play to the PC's backgrounds,
which is huge. We use that
or
consistently.
Their flaws.
Yeah, flaws and bonds.
Personalities.
Mm-hmm.
Even playing to their alignment, it draws them in.
Well, because it makes it personal.
Yeah,
it draws them in at a personal level, as opposed to just goal setting.
Yep.
Yeah. Save the town. Yay, we saved the town. Pay us.
Yeah,
it's just a goal.
Takes it from a list of errands to something a little bit more personal.
Right. And that's what you're looking for, because that keeps your players vested into both their character, the other characters as well, that are on the table, and then the plot as a whole.
Yeah, and when you do play to one PC's background, I find that the other PCs get invested in it as well. Like, I'm going to go help my friend.
Right.
I know this is something important to them. I know they would do the same thing if I were in that position. And if your DM likes playing with backgrounds like we do, then that character will be in that position eventually.
We have a habit of opening up, on Facebook. We'll post on our private chat line. People will post their entire backgrounds.
Yeah.
Now, not everyone does it. Some people want to hold it a little bit closer to their vest, which is perfectly fine. But as these things unfold, especially if you're not throwing everything out there, or not everyone has read it or seen it, someone else might go, wait a minute, that's close to my background. I wonder how we could use this.
Yep.
Now there's alliances there that may not have been there before.
Have your plot hooks come from a dying person. Dying people don't lie. They have no reason to. There's nothing to protect because they know they're dying.
This is true.
That's another one.
Yeah.
And then if your table's anything like ours, they'll take that plot hook, they'll grab it, they'll be like, let's check this out, but first let's loot the body.
Or save the dying person to complicate things even more. Yes, Lou, we know.
Yeah.
No comment.
Now we both know this, Bill. Sometimes shit just doesn't work.
Yeah, there are times where no matter how much planning you've done, no matter what you try to do, no matter what you direct, things just aren't working. So what do?
You let go. You gotta let go.
Cut the strings and just let it set adrift.
Yep. And it brings me back to the end of Titanic. Sometimes you just have to let Leonardo DiCaprio sink beneath the frigid waters and go. But you know what? There was plenty of room on that door. She could have moved over.
There was.
I'm just going to say that.
Well,
she could have moved. I would have pushed her over. I would have move over. It's cold.
I think she was waiting until you got to the perfect shade of blue that matched her dress. Unfortunately, he was dead then.
Yeah.
And then he was just an accessory that she didn't want to hang around with. So
sometimes it just doesn't work.
it doesn't work.
You know you're losing player interest. And it doesn't necessarily have to be because you have disruptive players. It's just like they're not feeling it.
Right.
The chemistry's not there. When the chemistry's there, it's awesome. But when it's not,
it felt great for you while you're writing it. When you put it out there, you got all the energy. You're doing everything right, but it's just not clicking with the group. Maybe it's too eclectic. Maybe it is on a subject that is, grayish. That some people aren't comfortable with.
Yeah, that'll do it.
There's a couple different reasons. It might just be maybe it isn't as good as you thought it was. But if that's the case, it's all right. This isn't working.
Yeah, have a conversation
Yep.
with them. It's like, look, be honest and say I want honest answers.
Yeah.
Because if you're playing at a table with your
this
friends,
is not a roast. This is not your
Yeah.
opportunity to tell me my feet are big and my breath is bad.
yeah, or that I suck as a DM. But where's the interest being lost? And if they're your friends, they'll answer you honestly and gently. But you have to ask for those honest answers, I think, because if they are your friends, they're going to want to preserve your feelings.
Yep.
And that's important too. You'll get answers. Pay attention,
Right.
because you're going to have to make some adjustments. But really, don't be afraid to let go of something that isn't working. If it's just not working, like you said, scrap it. Take a step back and
Good. It might be a time to take one of those opportunities to perhaps jump genres for a week.
yeah,
Just
maybe
for a
you're
reset.
burnt out.
You might be on the the verge of a burnout.
Refer to our episode on DM burnout.
There's a lot of different things you can do. It might be just time to take a week off. Everybody, let's take a week off.
Yeah, let's play board games.
Let's play board game. Yeah, just break the monotony. All right, let's make new characters. Session 0. Let's make new characters. Just for Haas. Now, we'll go right back to this next week. Let me revamp it. I got your ideas. But in the meantime, hey, we're here tonight. Let's have a good time. Let's make new characters, and we'll see if we use them in the next week or two.
Yeah.
There's a lot of different ways to go about it. But like I said, you talk to your players first and find out why. See if you can figure out why. Even if there isn't a why, it just doesn't feel right. Okay. Tell you what, give me a week, and we'll go a different direction with it. Same characters, just a different direction.
Yeah, but now that you have all that information, you've had that discussion, it's time to get to work.
Yeah.
You got to make some changes.
And if you've been prepping for a couple weeks or something like that, now you have 1 week to rewrite everything. Doesn't mean you have to scrap everything. Monsters are still monsters, encounters are still encounters. It's the plot you got to work on. And if that's the case, then you got to do it. So do it. So let's wrap this up. It's no longer theory. The planning's done. The monsters are built. NPCs have met the party. The other members of the parties have met each other, and the story has begun. So as you reach for your drink, provided by the player of the mage, and wash down the Reese's Peanut Butter Cup, donated by the Cleric's player, remember this: everyone has stepped into your realm. The good times and the bad are all on you. Work hard, stay diligent, and tell a good story. The rest will work itself out. Welcome to the club, my friend. My DM, my GM, my storyteller.
And that's your campaign, part 3, running the game. That's going to conclude this episode. Thanks for tuning in and listening. Please subscribe to the podcast for more great content. If you'd like to hear a particular topic, you can reach us on Facebook at the Dungeon Masters Dojo, or you can drop us an email at thedungeonmastersdojo@gmail.com. Thank you, and have a good day.